Hello, our friends in Virginia. Welcome to this special virtual town hall discussion by Bickford Senior Living. We are so glad that you chose to be with us this afternoon. My name is Melissa Smith, and I am your facilitator for this discussion and question and answer session by Bickford Senior Living today. We're going to talk about all things coronavirus vaccine, okay? So before we do anything, however, I want to help you be able to ask a question during this afternoon session. So the box that I'm sitting in here right now, right below this box, there's a form right there on the webpage. If you just scroll down, you'll see the form. You type in your name, you type in your question, you hit submit, and those questions come right here to my computer, and we can get those questions answered when it's appropriate within our presentation. So here is what we're going to accomplish today with you. We're going to answer questions that you may have about the vaccine, or you may have about the distribution of the vaccine to seniors in general and to those seniors moving into the senior living community. So we also are going to provide you with a timeline of deadline, if you will, the deadline to make a move into Bickford in time to receive that vaccine. We will share the necessary steps, of course, that you'll need to take in order to meet that vaccine deadline as well. I am very, very comforted by the fact that we have a vaccine, that the vaccine has, and I'm going to stop for just a second. Have they been able to hear me through this? Okay, we were just having some audio shifts here in the studio, so I just wanted to make sure that you could hear everything I was saying earlier.
Yeah,
but no, I just wanted to okay, we were just wanting to make sure that those at home were able to hear us for sure. Yep. So Ann is standing by. We're going to get to her in just a minute, and Alan too, to kind of give us an overview of the vaccine. But you know, it's been a really trying year. We've all experienced it. 20 million Americans, more than that, have actually been infected with COVID-19 over the past year, of course. And the death statistics for seniors over 65 just staggering. So the vaccine is going to be the answer. It's going to be what is going to allow us to get life back to some sense of normalcy. Bickford did a really cool thing. So back in the fall, they entered into what's called the Federal COVID-19 Vaccination Program, which is why we now have access to the vaccine, why Bickford now has access to it. So you're going to see some dates here on your screen of the deadlines that are coming up for the Bickford branches in Virginia. So those are the 4 Bickford branches. Those are the dates right there on your screen. And I think it's important to understand what the word deadline means in this case. It doesn't mean that you have to be completely moved in. It literally means you have to sign a commitment. That's what it means. And we're going to get into the details between now signing a commitment and that deadline and what all within that process that you will need to go through. So it's taking possession of an apartment. That's what the deadline means. And like I said, we're going to get into more of those details in a little bit. So this slide right here, if you didn't get out all that information down with the move-in deadlines, we're going to show it again in just a little bit. So don't worry if you didn't get all of that information down. Okay, so for now, let's go ahead and get some of those basic questions answered. Some of those commonly asked questions about the vaccine. And to do that, we have 2 of Bickford's executives who are joining us. First, we have Ann Cheverton. Ann is the Senior Vice President of Resident Services. Hey, Ann, thanks for being with us this morning.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Great. And then we also have Alan Fairbanks, and Alan is the Executive Vice President of Operations. Alan, thanks for being with us.
Oh, you bet. Absolutely. Thanks for having us. Appreciate the opportunity.
Of course. So I think the very first question we want to get to in terms of these basic questions kind of out of the way is, which vaccine is Bickford administering to their residents, to their Bickford family members, the caregivers and such? And then how many doses does this vaccine require? And I'll turn it over to you guys.
Yeah, thanks for that, Melissa. So initially, we have partnered with Walgreens to conduct clinics in all of our locations. And the initial vaccine is Pfizer. In the majority of our states and locations, that will be the vaccine. There may be, as most of us know, there's some Moderna's been approved, and there's an opportunity that it could be that that gets utilized later on. But what we do know is this: whatever vaccine is utilized, that will be the vaccine that is consistently utilized in that branch and in that clinic. And there will be 2 doses that are administered. They are generally going to be 28 days apart. So what we've been experiencing is when Walgreens has scheduled our initial clinic date, they've also scheduled a second date, in addition a third date, to be able to potentially pick up any individuals that have moved in after that initial clinic has taken place. So the trials have indicated that to be most effective, and we've seen 94% plus effective rates with the vaccine, you must take both vaccines, both doses, not just 1 dose. So it's 2 doses and typically 28 days apart. And the clinics are being conducted by Walgreens, usually Pfizer, could be Moderna, depending on each individual state and that local Walgreens location.
So to follow up with that, Alan, will the folks from Walgreens then come to the community to do that, or will the residents have to go to Walgreens?
No, they'll come to the community. Walgreens will come conduct clinics in our locations. They will come with their own personnel, and certainly Bickford will have personnel to support that as well, from an RN perspective, from a leadership director perspective. So there will be Bickford personnel there as well. So we'll have you covered from Walgreens personnel, and Bickford's personnel will be plenty of people there to hold your hand throughout the entire process.
Fantastic. So Ann, this is probably for you. So why would you say, as a health professional, why should seniors get the vaccine now as opposed to waiting until the spring, when I believe is when those who are 75 and older will have access to the vaccine? Why do this right now? And are seniors more at risk if they don't get the vaccine now?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. We know already, the data has shown us that our seniors today are more at risk than the general population, especially those over 75, which is the majority of our residents at Bickford Senior Living. And the death outcomes are very, very high with this particular group. So it is really a life-saving vaccination. It's going to prevent the infection and really prevent those bad outcomes that we see more with residents that have other comorbidities, other diseases that already weaken them coming into an infection. So the risk is much higher by age, by disease type as well. It's very, very important they get the vaccine, so then they're protected.
Mm-hmm. Very good. A lot of people I've heard, just in the general public, they talk about how quickly these vaccines were produced, and there is a little bit of worry around that. They were produced quickly, they were approved quickly. Do we need to worry about that?
That's another concern we've seen really in the internet as well. All of these different, questions about, is it safe? These vaccines have been produced very quickly because there was a great collaboration between multiple countries, governments releasing funds, the private sector, pharmaceuticals really jumping in. Some of these vaccines have already been in place with coronavirus. This is a different version of it. So they have these mRNA vaccines already kind of ready to go for regular coronavirus. So just trying to modify them to be ready for this, be mass produced, was done very quickly. No step in the process of the approval of FDA was missed. They go through very stringent guidelines and review. And we know today that at least 3,000 participants have to take the vaccine for it to approve from a phase 3 to a phase 4 clinical trial. We've had over 50,000 people have received the vaccine in that trial setting. And today, we also have seen over 4 million people have been vaccinated as well in our country. So we know that the vaccines are safe. We know the side effects are fairly minimal, and people are doing well with these vaccines.
You mentioned these side effects. Let's talk a little bit about what some of those side effects are.
Most of the side effects are very similar to taking any kind of flu shot that most of our residents take during the flu season. You might get a little bit of soreness at the site where you had the injection. We've done several clinics already, and we're seeing very, very minor pain at the site. But more typically, as your body starts to build up some immunity to the vaccine, you might have that initial reaction of maybe a headache, maybe a slight fever, maybe some body aches. These normally last for no more than a day or so, and you can recover from those very, very quickly. As long as people can take some Tylenol or Advil, or certainly take some fluids, make sure they have plenty of rest. We do know the second dose of the vaccine sometimes has more side effects. And so again, just making sure you're rested, to take fluids, take some Tylenol or Advil if needed. Most of these symptoms should be pretty mild and people can recover and even work with those symptoms.
So another thing that I'm sorry.
One thing I would add, Melissa, to the earlier question that you asked Ann in regards to the safety of the vaccine is, I think so many times people look at the speed of which was done as a negative. One, I look at it as a positive because it's something that can happen quickly to be able to save the number of lives that this vaccine is going to save. And also, there's been so much publicity and so much known of this vaccine and this COVID. Can you imagine the stringency in which all eyes were watching? So my belief is that this is probably as safe and safer than any other vaccine that's ever been produced, because there's more people paying attention to this than anything that's ever been developed ever, in my opinion, just because of the number of individuals that are paying attention to this.
Such a good point.
I just add to that too, because really where the scientific community is looking at this is modernizing how we're managing vaccines today. This is innovative times for us. So this is not something that's done in a hurry. It's something that's really moved us as an industry in managing vaccines very differently than we have in the past. So this is actually innovative times that the pandemic has really pushed us into.
Another thing that has come up, or a question that's come up by folks, is can they get COVID-19 from taking the vaccine, or can they somehow give it to somebody else, give the virus to somebody else if they get the vaccine?
That's another really good question. Typical vaccines that have been produced in the past are often the actual virus itself. It's attenuated, it's not live necessarily, so it's vaccine you can take in smaller doses. This is different. These two particular vaccines that are out are called mRNA vaccines. These are genetic material. And what they do is they take a small amount of protein from the virus itself, and this obviously is injected, it goes into a cell, and that protein itself is what the body reacts to. So actually you're not getting any kind of virus at all, no live virus. You can't replicate virus from this. Also, that means if you don't have the virus, you can't give it to someone either. So it also means that you will not be able to give it to someone else. So people are safe in taking the vaccine, and other people with them are not at risk from getting coronavirus from the vaccine.
So what about a senior that perhaps has had COVID-19 already? Do they still need to get the vaccine?
As this is a new virus, even though coronaviruses have been around for a long time, this is a new version of it. And so I think because we know our seniors are most at risk, the advice from the CDC and from the federal government is for seniors, even if they've had it and or anyone had it in the past, to certainly have the vaccine. It gives you active immunity, it gives you that protection. We don't know how much protection you get from the actual having the infection itself. So this is an ounce of precaution, but certainly highly recommended that they do take the vaccine, even if they've had coronavirus.
I think so many of us are just, we're all growing weary, and our hope is that we're going to get this vaccine, and then we're going to be able to set the mask aside, and we're not going to have to worry about social distancing. Is that in fact what's going to happen? And if it is, when will that be, or do we know?
Well, I wish I could, answer that question, but the reality is we don't know. I do think this is certainly the step to move in that direction. Our stance will be that we will continue with the protocols that we currently have in place. We will continue to have caregivers in masks. We will continue to screen visitors, because the reality is we're not going to know who has taken the vaccine and who hasn't taken the vaccine from any individuals coming into our branches. So we will continue to follow the same infection control protocols that we had pre-COVID and those more stringent post-COVID protocols we put in place as well. So I do believe, though, that soon we'll be able to move into worlds where our residents will be able to participate in communal dining. They'll be able to dine once again with their friends. You know, they'll be able to have activities within our locations in a group manner, in a group setting. So this will be a way for us to more quickly move into more of a normal world than certainly if we did not have the vaccine. So I do think we'll be able to move into that in a much more quicker fashion than we would if we didn't have the vaccine.
Awesome. We are going to get these dates back up here on the screen in just a moment for folks to know, for those who are considering a move into Bickford at this time, to be able to take advantage of this vaccine. Before we get to that, though, I want to kind of close this section out with you two. Is there anything else that you want to bring out about this vaccine coming into Bickford at this time that I haven't already asked you?
Yeah, for us and for Bickford, I think the thing that I would add is that we are going to continue to really strongly encourage and get as much participation in the vaccine as we possibly can, both from our residents, from our employees, our Bickford family members. I want that for everyone in the community, because I think this is our best chance to be able to move into a world where we can eradicate COVID from our world and from our communities. So we are going to continue to strongly encourage our residents and our BFMs to participate. What's happening is we're scheduling 3 clinics. The great news is if someone should happen to miss the first clinic, they're going to be able to participate in the second clinic and then the subsequent 3rd clinic as well. So our belief and hope is that we're going to get a large participation of residents and employees in our clinics and be able to get into a situation where we have a lot of immunity within our branches. And that's my hope and desire, that we'll see that out in the community at large as well. Exciting news to hear. Anne, any final thoughts from you for this particular part of our Q&A? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that for me, it's about the numbers. We're over 20 million people infected with coronavirus, and we know the number is probably much higher. Testing wasn't in place early in the day. We know right now the pace of coronavirus is about 1.5 million people are getting coronavirus every week. We know our seniors are most vulnerable. And so for me, the game changer, the only thing that's going to affect this is clearly wearing masks and social distancing isn't doing it. Holidays have kept everyone together. So we know the only way for this to be eradicated is to take the vaccine. And so that's our strong stance. We are really strongly recommending people take the vaccine. It's a game changer for this pandemic.
I don't hear. So Alan and Anne, thanks for that overview. I think we really kind of needed to do that to establish where things are right now, get the basic questions out of the way. Alan, I know, has to drop off. Anne's going to stick around to answer questions. And we do have some questions already that are coming into us. Thank you for that. And by the way, there's on your screen how you do that just below the box here. You type in your name, your question, hit submit, and that will come straight to us. So also joining us now is Samantha Goodman, and Samantha is the Director of Sales for Bickford. Sam, how you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Good. I think that what I want to do real quickly here before we kind of get into the nitty-gritty of the deadline and what that all looks like is, Anne, I think I want to go back to you now to answer this question from David Lewis. He has asked, I've heard some people with allergies have reacted to the vaccine. My mother is allergic. Are you prepared in the case of a bad reaction?
Great question. Absolutely. We haven't found in our data so far and data that is published that people that have general allergies have more of a reaction to the vaccine. So that's the good news. People have had reaction to vaccines in general in the past. We want to obviously make sure we're very careful with those. And if there is someone that's had an allergy to a vaccine specifically like this one, like a flu vaccine, we'd want to make sure we're talking to the primary care provider on that. It might be that it's fine. It might be we need to pre-medicate if that situation needs to be planned for. For those people that do have reactions, so far the numbers in the 36 million doses given so far, the numbers are extraordinarily low. Under 30 people have had this kind of reaction over the past 5 weeks that the vaccine has been out. And those typically happen in the first 15 minutes. Walgreens have EpiPens and the ability to give epinephrine, which is the immediate drug you want to give if someone's having what we call more of an anaphylaxis type reaction. But again, extraordinarily rare. The symptoms we're seeing typically are more, mild injection pain and maybe some headaches or body aches or those things. Very, very low reactions from an allergy perspective.
So you mentioned a 15-minute window. Do you pretty much know within that time frame if somebody's going to have an allergic reaction?
Yes, if someone's going to have an anaphylactic reaction that is that severe where it's going to affect their breathing, of course, swelling, hives, and those kind of things, which is an emergency where the airways can close, that is going to typically happen in that first 15 minutes. There have been a couple of that have occurred maybe at 20 minutes or 30 minutes, but essentially in that time period. We make sure that all of our residents have at least a 15-minute time period that they sit after their vaccine. And of course, they're with us in the community. So we have the ability to respond very, very quickly.
I have another question here, and Sam, this may be, I don't know, you guys will figure out who's the best one to answer this. This question comes from Stephen, and it's a couple of questions. The first one is, if moving in now without being vaccinated, do the residents need to quarantine? So that's the first question. The second to that is, are residents allowed to have visitors at this time? So maybe we want to break that up. First, talk about if moving in now, do they need to quarantine in the community?
Yeah, so yes, today we still have that protocol essentially in place. And that's just because we're starting to see the rollout of vaccines. We still have evidence of this large amount of, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, the large amount of coronavirus that's still obviously ever present. As we know, the vaccinations today are not impacting that number yet. We're still seeing a lot of infections. So we have a protocol in place where people have to come in initially into, we call it kind of almost like a room service. You have this special, extra attention. And we do a test several days after you've come in, and that allows you to come out of that kind of situation of just coming into the community. And that protects the individual from the community, but also the community, the residents themselves from that individual coming in as a precaution. So that is in play. And then what was the second question, Melissa?
Well, it's similar to that. Are residents allowed to have visitors at this time?
So that's a great question. So some of that is very much kind of state dependent. So yes, they are allowed to have visitors in Virginia unless there is an outbreak specifically in that particular branch, and or if there are very high positivity rates, that's infection rates in the community. So the health departments and the state departments give us the very strict guidelines we have to follow on that front. And so that changes almost kind of week to week. But certainly, if you are considering moving into a community, we can give you specifically in that particular community what's happening in that situation and in that community, and what the state and local health departments are telling us what to do.
And don't go away. I'm just going to give you a rest for a moment because I know you've been talking for a little bit here. I'm going to pull Sam in to help us. And those of you who are submitting questions, we're going to get to all of them, I promise you. But Sam, I feel like we need to give folks kind of, they're looking at these deadlines and they're thinking, how in the world is that going to happen in this short period of time? So let's help them get their head wrapped around that, okay?
Right. And so I understand that this is kind of a short deadline for some of you, as it's, almost the end of January. And so it's important to know that it might not be possible for you. Some of you still own your homes and things like that. And the idea of trying to get a moving truck and do all of those things and this short of a deadline might be a little overwhelming. And so what you would need to do is, it's more than just getting on the wait list or something like that. But what you would need to do is sign an apartment possession contract with us, which is paying for the apartment, but you wouldn't have to have that you wouldn't be paying for your care, obviously, because you wouldn't be receiving care, but you would be paying for the apartment rate. And so that would allow you to then physically move in. The apartment would be yours, but you would have that physical move in at a later time after you had the ability to, we would help you do those other items, like help you get the moving truck in place, move your items in, do that sort of thing. But you would own the apartment at that time. So it's an apartment possession contract with us.
This question from Alice, I think, kind of works with this. So Alice says, I am on the waiting list, but still enjoy my independent living, assuming she's at home, I believe. So not ready to move in yet. Will I be eligible to get the vaccine from your facility?
So that's a little difficult, and maybe Anne can talk to this a little bit. Right now, for you to be eligible for a vaccine, you have to be considered a resident within our assisted living. And so what that means is you either would have to be under contract as an apartment possession, or you would have to be living in our assisted living. And so that would either be the apartment possession where you're paying for the apartment, or physically living in. And so the reason that is, and Anne can to attest to this, is that there has to be specific guidelines about being a resident of ours. So Anne, is there anything more to add to that?
No, but I think what might be worthwhile, Samantha, is maybe we can do a separate reach out and have a conversation about it, because maybe understanding the dynamics of that move in, that wait list, and where she is with it.
Okay.
I think let's do it that way. I think that would be the best thing, because obviously if there's a way we can try and get you vaccinated, I'd love to try and help you with that. So
Okay.
we'll do a workaround on that one. Absolutely.
Okay, so Alice, they'll get back in touch with you. Sam will. Thank you for sending in your question and your contact information, and we'll just have a chat offline about that. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about, because there have been move-ins going on during COVID-19. The need for senior living doesn't change. I mean, folks still at many times, and families are in need of assisted living and in need of care. So how are those happening in the community? How do you work that out with the quarantining and all of that?
Yeah, move-ins have absolutely been happening. Just because COVID is around doesn't mean that someone still doesn't need care, regardless of whether it's because they can no longer live at home. Medication assistance, socialization has been incredibly important, particularly during this time when people are living at home alone. I know that, isolation has been huge. And so that in and of itself has created a problem. And so whether the branch is open for visitors where you can come in and tour on its own, or if you have to do that virtually, we have been trying to accommodate the best that we can, either coming into the branch, doing it virtually, where we're doing tours, by FaceTime or Zoom, like we're doing now. We can also go to a potential resident's or family member's home to meet there to try and show you pictures and that sort of thing. And we can also do paperwork that way. So we can do paperwork in person. We can do in person or electronically, whatever's easiest. We want to try and make it, path of least resistance, the best way for whatever needs, we can do to meet your family where you are.
So, Anne, what if somebody wants to move in, take advantage of this opportunity to be able to get the vaccine and feel safe that way, but you don't have the apartment that they really want?
Oh,
how are you working around that?
Yeah, great question. So we're going to facilitate, obviously, trying to get you in to the Bickford, to one of the branches here. And it may not be your perfect apartment, but it allows you to come in to have access to the vaccine, the care and services, and all the things that we offer. But we have an internal wait list. And so it also means that if you want to move to an apartment that suits more of either your size need, or maybe you want that view of that courtyard, or you want to have the particular view from one of our apartments, we can certainly facilitate that. And you get priority over those that are external to us coming into Bickford on the wait list as well. So we're going to work with you with that. And one thing which I think is very important is, especially as this is a tough time to make that decision, and also maybe the guilt we all bear about bringing our families from their home into an assisted living to one of our branches, we can do several things to personalize it. And sometimes what we'll do is we'll get the room pre-set up. We'll set up the room like the room is in their own home. allow them to put possessions in before they move in, and those things, like those kinds of things as well. And also, if you don't have everything ready to move, we can also assist you with that, and we have furnishings and what have you. So there's no reason to stop the move in to give access to the vaccine.
So move-ins are happening, and you all are working with families to make it happen in every which way that they can. I think we'll put those deadlines up there one more time there for folks to see here for just a minute. And Ann, you did a great job. I meant to say Sam and I said Ann, and you just took it away. That was
You did great.
Sam, Ann, Sam, right?
Yeah, she's trained me well. So
yes, for sure. So this one is, I believe, for you, Ann, because I do think that the numbers are changing so much every day around COVID-19, and it's kind of hard to keep up. And I know in the beginning, I was always looking on my phone to see what the situation was. So where do we stand right now as a nation fighting this particular virus?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it is a moving target and is evolving, and some of the evolution is good, and some of it is just not good at all, and we have to make some changes here. But overall, we know we have over 24 million that have been infected with coronavirus since the beginning in February of last year. We know that actually the number is probably exponentially higher. Just because we weren't testing back then, we couldn't capture everyone. We knew the disease was here earlier. We know many people are asymptomatic, don't know they even have it. So this number is low, the 24 million is low. We do know from the testing we do have today, about 1.3 to 1.5 million people each week are still getting coronavirus. So this is, again, not going away. The only way it will go away is with a vaccine. And very sadly, we hit a milestone this week also with going over 400,000 have lost their lives to coronavirus. This is serious. We know that, especially this is a number that changed as well. We know that several weeks ago, we were doing everyone who was 75 and older, and with statistics from several countries and our countries as well. And knowing that those over 65 are more at risk, the government opened up the 65-year-olds into the first phase of rollout of the vaccine, which is highly impactful.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah. And I know, I think earlier I said 75, but it's now 65 for those over 65 for sure.
Yep.
All right. Let's just, for just a second, I want to set the vaccine aside, if you will, because I have been around Bickford. It is truly a very, very special company, very special, the branches, each branch. There's just this whole element of the heart of a caregiver that you all take to heart. You just take seriously. I mean, it's just ingrained in who you are at Bickford. And I really feel like we need to talk about that for just a minute, because there's other reasons besides a vaccine for folks to make the move to Bickford, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I'll speak to that first.
Okay.
You know, I've had the honor of working for Bickford for quite a long time, and the honor of having a family member also live at Bickford. And so I think that it's important when you're talking about Bickford, it's more than just I don't know, it's very special. It's more than just an assisted living, it's a family. And so when we talk to that, I think that you can get your basic needs and your care needs met just about anywhere. But what really sets Bickford apart is the unrecognized needs. And what that is that it's just that something extra special. And we want to enrich the happiness of what we can. You know, this is such a special part and time in our residents' lives. And it's a difficult transition. And we call our staff Bickford family members because it's we are a family, and it's something very special. And I think that we have a video here, that we're going to show, and you can just see the love and happiness that our residents and our Bickford family members have, and the excitement that and hope that, our whole branch, and this is a representative of all of our branches, feel, and then the excitement that not only is this vaccine giving, but the love that is representative of all our branches. And so it's completely different. You have to feel it, to experience it, to feel it.
Absolutely. And we're going to get your remarks to that on the other side of this video, which there have been, the vaccine in other states has reached the Bickford communities already. And that's part of what you're going to see here. So take a listen.
You're broken down and tired of living life on the merry-go-round, and you can't find a fighter, but I see it in you, so we gon' walk it out. Move mountains, we gon' walk it out and move mountains. And I'll rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again. And I'll rise up, I like the waves. I'll rise up, in spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again. And we'll rise up, I like the waves. We'll rise up, in spite of the ache. We'll rise up, and we'll do it 1,000 times again.
I am with her. Let's get life back to the way it used to be. That video is so lovely. And I mean, it's just so sweet.
Well, I think that you know, the music of Rise Up is really what it's all about, right? We're rising to the occasion of, you know, bringing on our strength of having vaccinations that will be the only thing that will eradicate this. So we're hot for the challenge, as I think the US is hot for the challenge to take this vaccine. And I think start to return to normal. You know, we want to hug our family. You know, the one sign there, I want to hug my wife. I mean, how heartbreaking is that? You know, I want to return to normal. So I think that's what we're all kind of ready and looking for, but what a beautiful thing. And I think what it also speaks to a little bit, you get that sense and that emotion from the video, is the fact that we do consider all of our residents as individuals, and we look at them in a very, very individualistic way. We have something called a life song, where we gather all of the information about them and understand their desires, their life history, kids, dogs, whatever it might be, their favorite food. And we want to cater to that. And not only do we provide all the kind of care needs, that what we consider the basic needs, but actually we try and do things that are special. And for example, we have things which we call life song baskets, and that's for our seniors that have maybe more memory issues, and especially if they're feeling lonely or upset, or they have some behaviors. We may have some special things in that basket that are just for them, that the family helps us create for them, so we can help them through those times as well. But it's all about individualized care and needs, which I think we do very well at Bickford Senior Living in our programming, but also wanting to make every person feel very, very special. And in that first 30 days of moving, it's so important for us to get to know them and do those special things to make them feel part of the Bickford family.
Oh, it is. I enjoyed so much last year meeting so many of the executive directors of the Bickfords across the country. And every one of them, I asked them, you know, share with me some stories of what the community did along the lines of those life stories. And I was blown away. I mean, things like one gentleman who had a business in a community right near the university, where all the college students would come in, and he talked about how much he loved seeing them come in every day and hearing their stories, and how much he missed going into his own place. He sold, obviously, to be later in life, but and to hear him when they took him back. I mean, it's those kind of things that you guys do that I don't know any other senior living brand does that. Maybe they do. I don't know. I haven't heard of it, but I just think it's incredible the lengths that you go to do special things for the residents, especially when they need it for sure. So I just can't say enough about the cool things that you do. I want to put Samantha's contact information back up here. If by chance you have a question that comes up, say tonight something pops in your head and you wish that you had asked that question today, you can either jot down this information right here, which is Sam's phone number and her email address, or you can come back to this web page. So the email that was sent to you that linked to this web page, you can come back to this at any time, watch this. We're recording it right now. So when you come back, you'll be able to see it again if you need to, or share it with a family member if that would be helpful. And that form right below the square that this video is in will be still live. So you can continue to ask a question through that way as well. But before we close, I don't know if there's anything else that the two of you want to add before we end our conversation and Q&A session today.
No, I'm just excited that all of you joined us. I think that we're excited about, and like you saw in that video, incredibly excited about the vaccine and being an advocate, and hoping that you'll join us here and be a part of the Bickford family. And so thank you. Anne?
I think that, unfortunately, being a nurse, I just have to educate, right? I have to share the information that is of concern. So just somewhat of a repeat that, please just realize that the only thing that is going to make a difference with a pandemic and to eradicate it is a vaccine. So the good news is it's here. The great news is we have it at Bickford Senior Living, and we'll be able to secure vaccine for you, which is highly important. And that's the game changer as far as we know. But I think it's more than that. It's, I think many of you have maybe been putting off or nervous or anxious or just have some guilt about making some of these decisions, and we can help you through that process. We do this all the time, and we just see residents thrive when they come to us, especially now during the pandemic. It's been a tough year, and families just see just a complete difference in their parents and their family members as they come into Bickford. So certainly consider the vaccine. That's a great option, but also consider the other things that we bring to you to care for your loved one.
And Alice, Samantha's going to call you. It's going to happen. You're real soon. So we just wanted to make sure Alice knows that that's coming for sure. Thank you all so much for participating. Thanks for your great questions. We hope you stay safe. We hope you stay well. And we hope that we see you at Bickford Senior Living. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.